Okay, good morning. As the slide says here, my name is Russ Fenton. I work in the Defensive Cyber Operations branch within TRADOC Capability Manager Office, Cyber, at the U.S. Army Cyber Center of Excellence at Fort Gordon. So I'm here today in order to present information in reference how the Army is going to get at fielding a defensive cyberspace operations maneuver baseline across multiple echelons in support of unified land and cyberspace operations. I am one to say that sometimes you come across information and you have a question about that you may not remember at the end of the presentation. So while if you could hold off to the end to ask questions, if you feel like you just got to ask it then because you won't remember it at the end, then by all means raise your hand, and Mr. Dave Smith here will bring the microphone over to you to ask that question. And just so everybody can hear, as well as I guess we're being recorded, if you could just wait to get the microphone before asking that question. Okay, so as I said, the purpose here is really just to provide you an understanding of ongoing efforts to employ cyberspace warfighting platforms so that cyber protection teams can maneuver within the cyberspace domain. And that can be done either remotely or on site. And what we're really looking for the objective is to ensure that we can engage and destroy cyber threats and vulnerabilities. So the topics I'll cover for this presentation is kind of start off with a foundational description of cyberspace operations, just to baseline the audience, discuss what it truly means to maneuver in cyberspace. I will explain the different variations of the DCO maneuver baseline, as well as input some of the current fielding plan. Tell you how we're going to leverage evaluations and assessments, give you our overall DCO requirements strategy, and then finish up with a summary. Okay, so like I said, before I can really discuss the maneuver baseline, given the assumption that there's a lot of individuals out here in the audience with varying degrees of knowledge related to cyberspace operations, as well as warfighting in the domain, it's best really to give you and present to you kind of, that baselining information. So as many of you know, cyberspace is a global domain within the information environment consisting of independent networks, of information technology infrastructures, including the internet, telecommunication networks, computer systems, and embedded controllers. So while most really think of cyberspace kind of being virtual, it really does consist of three layers: the physical, the logical, and the social, and each has its own purpose. They also have their own vulnerabilities as well as countermeasures against them. So the key aspect here to really gain understanding is to realize that cyberspace is a warfighting domain on par with land, maritime, air, and space. This slide here is meant to depict the integration of the cyberspace missions. It was produced at the joint level, and it shows the missions for the cyber protection teams, the national mission teams, COCOM mission teams, and combat support teams / national support teams, and how those are connected. The Cyber COE modified this slightly at one point in order to actually include electronic warfare, and that's really to bring out the aspects of cyber electromagnetic activities or operations and show how the effects that are generated in both are really mutually supporting. So JP312, which is the joint pub for cyberspace operations, consists of three missions. It's DOTIN operations down there at the bottom. And as you can see, those operations are more network focused and threat agnostic. General Fogarty has pretty much said there's a reason why it's down there at the bottom. It's because it really sets the foundation for all other cyberspace operations to be conducted. And so if you're lacking in that area, you are really hampering yourself, especially when it comes to the conduct of defensive cyberspace operations. Okay, so the focus here, and the focus for this presentation is really, again, the defensive cyberspace operations. Those are more mission-focused and threat-specific. And I'll get a little bit into the integration of what we call cybersecurity, a part of DoD operations, and especially the internal defensive measures within DCO. So as it says there, defensive cyberspace operations includes passive and active operations that preserve warfighting net-enabled capabilities against an advanced persistent threat. So for DCO, we're not necessarily looking at the common known threat, but we're more focused on the advanced, persistent, and sophisticated cyber threat in order to conduct those operations. DCO consists of two types. There's the internal defensive measures, which are conducted inside friendly networks, and those are to include actively hunting, again, for advanced internal threats, as well as the internal responses to those threats, such as mission assurance actions and dynamic reestablishing, resecuring, rerouting, reconstituting, or isolating degraded or compromised networks and systems. And then you have the defensive cyberspace operations response actions. So if you've been doing this for a while, you realize that probably about 5 years or a little bit more ago, they actually, response actions were at 3 levels. One was kind of specific to or external to the network, and then the other 2 really were about conducting operations or response actions inside friendly networks. So with JP 312, that definition has changed, and response actions purely linked to those activities conducted outside friendly networks for the purposes of defense. What you can't see there is the cyberspace actions, which are really cyber defense. You've got cyberspace, operational preparation of the environment, cyber attack, which is kind of right down here at the bottom, and right behind that block right there is cyberspace intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance. The key thing to note here is that there's not a one-to-one relationship between these actions and an operation. So as an example, you don't just have it where cyber defense is supported by defensive cyberspace operations. It's really an integration of all these different operations where, again, you may be conducting a DoD operation that supports the cyber defense with the DCO response action operations while that's supported by cyber attack. Again, it's really done as part of DCO. And so again, as we kind of talk about this, the one thing that I've done within our concept of operations is really not title it as defensive cyberspace operations more than how do you establish the cyberspace defense, and how do you establish it by not only conducting defensive cyberspace operations, but how do you integrate, again, all these other operations, DoD ops, offensive cyberspace operations, intelligence, electronic warfare, as well as other information-related capabilities. So often individuals will attempt to articulate where DOTIN operations start or stop and where DCO end or begin. But there really is not a line of demarcation between the two, and I think that our cyber protection teams are finding that more and more as they're out there supporting different networks. And to me, this is kind of similar to where you really don't have a line of demarcation between warfighting and humanitarian activities. In many cases, those are really going on at the same time. So there is a continual supported and supporting relationship between the two operations, and then the determination of which one is supported and which one is supporting is really based on intent, focus, laws, and policies. So to better understand the overall concept of operations, it really helps to envision something like base operations, where you see in this figure here, you've got really any base, post, camp, and station that includes the perimeter protection right around here, as well as the implementation of common security measures across the installation. Now, imagine if this installation has a location or area for which the seizure, retention, or control affords a market advantage to the adversary. So that could be somewhere in here. This is what we refer to as key terrain. And so just like there's key terrain in land, there's key terrain in cyberspace. You've got area security elements that are out there kind of along these likely avenues of approach. And they provide you advanced early warning as well as some level of protection out front of your perimeter. But if the advanced or sophisticated threat is able to penetrate the perimeter and the security and somehow get close enough to that key terrain or key cyberspace terrain, you are going to need to have at least the ability to look at or leverage quick reaction, security enhancement, and a reinforcement team in order to defend that terrain and allow the organization in order to continue to perform its mission. So to look more in cyberspace, this really makes it so that we need to leverage or have a scheme and maneuver of different arrays of forces. And so we've got our local cyber defenders who are, again, at the base, post, camps, and stations, and they are planning, preparing, and implementing technical and non-technical security measures out there, again, against the known and common threat. When mission dictates, again, they're going to overlay the mission over the network and determine, again, what their critical assets are within that network and denote that as key terrain in cyberspace. You're going to have elements like the regional cyber centers that we have that, again, are going to provide that area security along the avenues of approach and provide that advanced early warning out there. And then we have global cyberspace defenders like your cyber protection teams, or if it's down at the core and below, what they refer to as DCO support teams that are going to act as a maneuver defense force that is going to offer that commander quick reaction reinforcement and security enhancement capabilities, as I mentioned before. So the ability to provide the quick reaction, security enhancement, reinforcement at the time of need, global cyberspace defenders must have the ability to maneuver remotely or on site. And maneuver involves cyberspace defenders skillfully moving to a designated area in order to destroy the enemy or recover from an attack by concentrating all the necessary capabilities on that network and supporting systems. Maneuver is also going to allow you to go ahead and take full advantage of the areas of operation and to rapidly appear and focus your efforts when desired. And this enables cyberspace defenders to counter the enemy's mobility during an attack by disrupting the kill chain and containing an incident within a certain area of the network. So the defense of cyberspace really requires the development of new solutions that will be based upon infrastructure, platforms, and a tool paradigm. So from this slide here, you can see that the infrastructure, which is down at this level, really is similar to kind of that pristine terrain environment and cleared routes for which the cyberspace defenders will fight. You've got a platform here that really acts like a tank that is maneuvered to the right location at the right time in order to take the appropriate defensive position. And then you've got your tool or payload here that is really that virtual ammunition that is fired from that platform when necessary. So again, that's the approach as we develop our DCO solutions that we are taking, again, in order to leverage infrastructure, but develop these warfighting capability platforms and have the right tools and bring those up when needed. Okay, so for the purpose of this brief, I would just tell you that the term infrastructure is defined as the collection of hardware and software that enables the instantiation and execution of the software platforms. The infrastructure contains a physical layer, which is right down here, and the abstraction layer when applicable. The physical layer consists of the hardware resources that are necessary to support services to be provided via platform deployment, and typically include physical servers, storage, and network components. The abstraction layer really consists of that software deployed across those that physical layer to enable a common interface to underlying hardware resources, providing on-demand services, broad access, resource pooling, and elasticity. The platforms that are up at this level here, that term is defined as the capability provided to the operator that enables the employment of necessary tools and payloads onto the infrastructure. Platforms are installed on the infrastructure and consist of software such as operating systems, middleware, runtimes, databases, web servers, and development environments. And then the cyberspace tool is software, data, or an application that supports or directly causes effects related to cyber mission force and cyber workforce tasks. They are executed and managed within the platform, and the cyberspace tools are comprised of scripts, analytics, and associated data. Okay, so our DCO maneuver baseline, and right now I'm just going to start off talking about the infrastructure layer, that physical layer, really consists of three flavors. There's a deployable version. We also refer to that as the DDI, so the DCO, or Deployable DCO Infrastructure. And that enables the CPTs to travel to austere environments and provide on-site DCO capabilities where those capabilities do not exist or are insufficient. Then you've got the garrison DCO infrastructure, or the GDI, which we go ahead and pre-position that capability at select installations and enable the CPTs to remotely conduct secure, survey, and protect missions. And then you have a tactical DCO infrastructure that we are going to position or pre-position at the operational and tactical level in order to provide augmentation DCO capabilities to cyberspace defenders existing at the core division and the BCTs. During recent assessments and evaluations, we have placed the TDI within the brigade main and TAC, but this may change as we gather more lessons learned. As part of this integrated approach, the DCO infrastructure is just one capability of a family of integrated capabilities. So we will utilize a portion of this infrastructure to assist in the collecting and storing of relevant network data in order for that data to be enriched and analyzed and be fed up to the Army's cyber analytic big data platform environment. Moreover, we are working with organizations such as Seven Signal Command to ensure that the maneuver baseline, or definitely the infrastructure, is mutually supportive of the tactical to RCC integration program, which supports standardization and data collection and feed from the tactical level up to the RCC. So how we employ our tools inside the set of virtual machines is important. So in general, we have to organize by function, yet licensing is also an important factor. So the tools are encapsulated into purpose-built platforms comparable with both the deployable and pre-positioned capabilities. And currently there are three general types. So you've got a public available distribution, and these VMs are really managed by open source teams that are outside of our control, and there is no restriction on the use of those virtual machines. You've got the VMs that contain the licensed tools, and these VMs are typically within the Windows virtual environments with vendor licensed software installed. As we have a limited number of these licenses, basically these VMs have to be managed very carefully. And then you've got the orchestrated VMs, and these exist with just enough of an operating system to be able to receive instructions from OpenStack via an orchestrated engine called Heat to launch multiple composite cloud applications. And these VMs install software during provision time and are really the most flexible. The orchestrated VMs are really configured and loaded with tools during the provisioning and leveraging of multiple tools and software repositories. So those tools kind of exist somewhere else, and again, when those VMs get spun up, the defender will go ahead, reach within that repository, and go ahead and load that tool onto that environment. So mission-related work here really should be performed at the platform layer where practical, and these bastion hosts serve as a hypervisor for the platform layer virtual machines. So the DCO Tool Suite that makes up the tool and payload layer of the DCO maneuver baseline is a flexible and dynamic JIE and common operating environment compliant. Software based on warfighting capabilities that enable both the CPTs and the DSTs to perform their mission. And we look to Program Executive Office Enterprise Information Systems who have already done initial buy of the tools that you see there. So I will tell you that, as you'll see in the next slide, we've done a lot of work across the COE, our cyber, and NetCom to ensure that we are standardizing these tools, understanding where there may be some redundancies, and determine whether or not those redundancies are acceptable in certain situations, and then gain efficiencies where we can. Well, this slide here really shows the current version 1.5 list of DCO tools required for the baseline setup capabilities for CPTs to conduct the 3 missions I mentioned earlier. And again, to ensure synchronization, efficiencies, and deconfliction, it is critical that we go ahead and work with the key stakeholders, not only across the Army, but across DoD and the other services to ensure that we have convergence. Currently, right now, I think one of the tools that continues to come up is ACAS, and again, where we can leverage that, which already exists on the network, that's fine. But I have at least stated that I think when you look at something like ACAS down there, where your cyber defenders that are at the core and below or at a network enterprise center are really going to look at all the systems and all the vulnerabilities out there. What the CPTs are going to do within the DCO maneuver baseline is, again, focus on that key terrain in cyberspace and only be able to look and see what of very specific vulnerabilities those systems that are within that key terrain, what those systems can be exploited by from a specific threat. So NetCom supported the initial fielding of the deployable DCO infrastructure late last year. So each CPT received 1 kit. They conducted orientation training during January and February of this year. And this slide here shows the technical specifications of the DDI version 1 Bravo. In May of last year, the Army kicked off the first of several cyber innovation challenges. The focus of that event was to ask industry to provide options for more advanced deployable DCO infrastructure. That August, the Cyber COE, R-Cyber, ASALT, and others met with the interested vendors to receive demonstrations on viable options. And in the end, 2 companies were asked to work together, with one providing the infrastructure, and that's critical stack, and then the other providing the platform layer, which was Parsons. The contract was awarded in October of 15, and phase 1 delivery of the prototype occurred April of this year. And then during that fielding, each team received 3 kits consisting of systems categorized for initial, which is kind of your hasty missions, 0 to 5 days, enhanced, which are your deliberate missions up to 4 months, and then sustain, which have the potential of becoming pre-positioned, but are really for missions that are greater than 4 months. So as you can expect that, your initial kit is a lot more flexible as far as the ability to move, and but not as much capability as the enhance and sustain. So what kind of, again, a concept of operation is that a team may come in, they will initially employ the initial kit. That may lead to the need to bring in a more enhanced, or again, if that mission continues to go longer, they will go ahead and bring in a sustained kit. And if you kind of look at the way the Army deploys a lot of its network infrastructure, It will be brought in, and then it will continue to be operated and maintained until more fixed infrastructure can come in, and then that kit can go ahead that was there, or that network could be deployed somewhere else. And very similar here, where they bring in the initial kit. Again, if that mission continues to go on, you'll bring in something more, again, that can be pre-positioned at that location so that this kit here can then be deployed somewhere else. So phase 2 of the prototype delivery actually is going to begin next week. So phase 2 primarily consists of replacing the current initial category system that's right here with a more robust infrastructure in order to allow the establishment and operation of more VMs rapidly. So nothing in phase 2 for the enhanced or the sustained platforms change. Okay, so these here are just a larger view of the 3 kits that I just showed on the last slide. I do want to point out that we do look to have some specialty hardware and peripherals in order to have an out-of-band communication channel into this baseline. So while, yes, more times than not, we want to work over that transport going into that network, if for some reason that is not available, we still have access to these kits and to our actual tools through an out-of-band channel communications. Okay, this is phase 2 right here. And really, the biggest thing that changes is the chassis up here, and this becomes, I believe it's a razor core platform that you've got the laptops manage. This does the majority of your processing and collection. Okay, once again, enhanced version. It's for both phase 1 and 2. Again, looking to have that out-of-band communication. So as we go forward here, I think the key thing is that this really was put out there again through that innovation challenge that I discussed. As we build the requirement for the maneuver baseline, and specifically for the infrastructure itself, we understand that we are continuing to have to look at and leverage technology in order to get these things even smaller than they are. The initial one is not too bad. Enhanced is not that bad as well, but when you especially get up to enhanced here, you're talking big cases of equipment. So the mobility is, even though this is deployable, is not necessarily where we want it to be. Okay. There's a sustained right there. So then we have the Garrison DCO infrastructure, and that consists of a 42U rack containing a firewall, switch, deployment, controller, computer and storage nodes, a KVM, and power backup. The primary or preliminary design here for the GDI occurred back in February, and it was approved last month. And then starting this month and ongoing through September and October, the initial fielding on the NIPRNet will be conducted at the Fort Gordon Battle Lab, Fort Belvoir, Redstone Arsenal, and Wiesbaden. And then also we look to field a GDI on the SIPRnet at Wiesbaden as well. So future fielding of the GDI is going to align with the Army's network modernization strategy, and then the number of GDIs will map to the two prioritized types of installations in accordance with the Army's Installation Protection Priority List. So that list is actually secret when you start matching types to installations, but I will tell you that Type 1 is really comprised of kind of your force projection installations, and Type 2 includes installations that provide more kind of combat support-like services. In the end, the total number is 56, and because we're going to employ these on both NIPR and SIPR, that results in the fielding of 112 instantiations across Army-managed installations. So I stated before that the DCO maneuver baseline will support the Army's fielding of cyberspace analytic big data platform capability. That is going to be, or is referred to as the enhanced GDI version that you see here, and that's configured in a way to support that requirement at the regional level. For those who don't know, the cyber analytic capability kind of offers a secure and integrated solution for all network domains in order to meet present, future provisioning of capabilities in a environment that is very data heavy. It's going to be tied into the at certain levels. Make sure that tie into the joint regional security stacks. We're working with DISA to make sure that we can do that, and we can also leverage their cyber analytic capability known as CSAC, which is Cyber Situational Awareness Analytical Cloud. And at the end of the day, make sure that when we run an analytic, even within the Army's network, not only can we run that across data collected within the eGDI, but within the CSAC environment as well. So the Army will install 22 instantiations of the big data cluster linked to the, in some cases, to the eGDI, but that will be, again, along a regional where you've got CONUS, CENTCOM, EUCOM, PACOM, and Korea. The other sites that will have a big data platform, they will not be eGDI, and those kind of link back to MedCom, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, I think the Guard, the Reserves, where we're not necessarily using this for maneuverability within those networks, especially like for the Guard where they have their own C&D teams or cybersecurity teams. Okay, the tactical DCO infrastructure, here's the diagram. Again, the TDI will be pre-positioned at the core, division, and BCT levels. Currently, we are looking again at the main and the TAC to have this employed, definitely for the SIPR and coalition networks. But we're also looking at the requirement for TDI on the NIPRNet as well as the colorless core. So critical to success for the employment of the TDI is our ability to leverage opportunities during the Army Warfighter assessment and the network integration evaluation. We've got things like Cyber Blitz and Cyber Quest that just occurred here last week or last couple weeks here in July. And so again, making sure that while we may be looking at specific capabilities, because these are an integrated family of systems, that we ensure we have these other pieces there up and running during that time. So the focus for AWA 17 is really going to build upon, and that's the next one in the chute here, is going to build upon what occurred during NIE 16.2. During 16.2, we only employed this during the 1-week field comics. And in working with PM WinT Inc. 3, now I believe PM WinT Inc. 3 Tactical Cyber Network Operations, they fielded 6 of the TDI at 2.1 BCT. And for that, that consisted of 1 instantiation of the TDI on the NIPRNet, 1 on the SIPRNet for each of the main and brigade TAC, and then 1 maneuver battalion. During that time, we had 4 objectives, there will be 4 objectives during 16.2, which was really incorporate the lessons learned from 16.1, go ahead and technically deploy and demonstrate the ability to automate the allocation of resources for the DCMB within the tactical network, and then operationally utilize the maneuver baseline by conducting a small set of missions. And then last, technically redeploy and demonstrate the ability to reallocate and clean up the maneuver baseline resources within the tactical network. So again, making sure that we can come in, the system's running, bring up the virtual platforms, load the tools necessary in order to conduct the mission, and then when we're done, we just tear everything back down, and it's sitting there waiting for the next mission to be conducted. So for 17.1, we're really looking at supporting the hardware and virtualized platforms and have those be installed for the entirety of the assessment. There's right now currently going to be just 2 objectives. Again, looking at the lessons learned and capturing the applicable metrics that will feed into the requirement, and then operationally demonstrate the integration of global, which again is your CPTs or DCO support teams with the local cyber defenders down at the brigade level. That's going to feed back into refining our concepts of operations as well as DCO-related doctrine development. 17.2, again, looking to implement the DCO maneuver baseline, capture lessons learned, but then as another tool we look to put on that capability is the forensics and malware. And then last, for 18.1, again, we will use the maneuver baseline. We believe by 18.1 that this will become a program of record and be inherent to the tactical and operational networks. And then this one here, we look to demo user activity monitoring down at that level. Okay, I talked a little bit about the Army Cyber Innovation Challenges. This timeline here shows how the Army can utilize a consortium and other transaction authorities to request vendor ideas to meet real-time problems, and then conduct demonstrations and technical exchanges, and ultimately select a candidate for delivery of a prototype in as little as 75 days. So this does not take the place of the enduring process. So, we just can't continue to do this and just do it enough times where we actually purchase enough capability and field it to the force. But what we want to do is, again, quicken that flash to bang time for those real-time problems, and then bring these things within the enduring process. So from an overarching requirement strategy, what we have done is looked at what was out there for operational need statements as well as current initial capability documents stemming all the way back to 2006. We analyzed those, and somewhere in here you see the net-enabled mission command. You've got LAM-1net ICD, GIG-IA ICD, and we came up with these consolidated list of requirements related to the defensive cyberspace operations. So instead of going the traditional approach of a just typical ICD that leads you to a capability development document and then to a capability production document, we are leveraging what's called the IT box process or model. And what that does is it allows us to bring this requirement all the way up to the joint level, and once the joint level approves it, they're going to delegate authorities to approve follow-on requirements down to an Army body. So in this case here, it would be the Army Requirements Oversight Council. So that provides a lot more agility in identifying the requirement, producing it, and then getting it for approval that then leads to more rapid funding and delivery of solutions. And we're going through, I'll show you the timeline here, what we're going right now with the DCO ICD. So the follow-on requirements documents are really your requirements definition packages, your capability drops, and we look at each one of these here being separate programs. The first basically 7 we're very comfortable with in that, again, we've got the cyber analytics, each one or a flavor of the maneuver baseline and infrastructure will be separate. Again, we've got the DCO Tool Suite, which integrated with the infrastructure really establishes that baseline. And then things like forensic malware, insider threat. The DCO planning piece is our partnership with R-Cyber and DARPA on their Plan X capability. And so they've demonstrated that a few times now in CyberGuard and CyberFlag. But DARPA have about 18 months right now in order to continue development of this, to bring it up to a technology ready in this level 6 in order to transition this to an actual PM. And so we will continue to work with them to make sure that that's ready for transition sometime early 18. And then other things like advanced sensors, threat discovery, counter infiltration, and last, threat emulation. So here's been our timeline. I'm not going to read everything to you. What I'll tell you is that we are currently at the joint level on what's called a Cyber C4 Functional Capability Board. Tentatively right now, we're set for 18 August to go in there. And once we get past that board, it will go into the Joint Capability Board, but that will be what they call a paper JCB. And so very quickly get that approved sometime in 16 and actually have a Joint Requirements Oversight Council memorandum that allows us then to go into a material development decision and then go ahead and submit those first draft of requirements definition packages that cover the first 5 here, but again, the infrastructure is broken out into 3 separate programs. So very fuzzy up here as far as the timeline goes. A lot of it's going to be dependent not only in getting through the FCB and the JCB, but what we are going to have to do is ask ASALT to modify or help us with modifying that process to get a material development decision. Okay, so in summary, so basically, again, we're establishing the defense in cyberspace And that's the way we kind of look at it when we go and look at DCO-related capabilities. Because, again, we understand that we've got to integrate these other things like DOTA and operations type capabilities, Intel, EW, and other information-related type things. So, you know, one of the good things of us being here at the COE is we've got the TRADOC Capability Manager offices for networks and services that works the DOTA and operations. We've got tactical radios, which is down more in the lower tactical internet, but still having to look at DCO capabilities that apply down there. We've got TICM-EW, so again, partnering with them to ensure that we can leverage EW capabilities for the purposes of defending and protecting the network. And then once our cyber comes here, it will grow even better on with our partnership with them. We've got a very good relationship with the Advanced Concepts and Technology Division within our cyber. We're growing our relationship with kind of a similar entity within NetCom, and then bringing in the CIOG6 and some of the other key stakeholders. I think we're all coming together right now in order to be able to speak in one voice and work towards a common goal. So again, the scheme maneuver I talked about really consists of the global, regional, and local cyber defenders. It's the global cyber defenders that we're trying to really build these maneuver capabilities for, whether it be, again, remotely or on site. That DCO maneuver baseline is going to help them to do that. And again, we're going to leverage that infrastructure platform and payload and tool paradigm. And the three flavors, again, we have the pre-positioned ones, which are the garrison and tactical, and then kind of for those, the have-nots or more austere environment, we have the deployable version. Again, we're working towards fielding the GDI now, as well as some fielding DDI. We've got 10 versions of the TDI currently, but we have not fielded them directly to a unit because we're using those to assist in our evaluations and assessments. And then last, the DCO ISICD will really support not only the maneuver baseline, but other requirements in order to bring them within an enduring process. So with that said, I thank you for listening, and I now open up to any questions.
Hey, Russ, Drew, 2018, AW18 is going to be a coalition network. Do you get them for that one?
Yeah, 17 is a coalition as well, so we're going to be in coalition for both 17 and 18.
And then the second question is, when you deliver your capabilities, are you going to go straight to the cyber protection teams, or are you going to drop them off at the six shops?
Right, so the VoIP is actually going to be down to the actual brigade, but again, initially right off the bat, that capability is going to be there for augmentation to those local defenders through the CPT. At some point, again, through the assessment and evaluation process, we may see opportunities where the local cyber defenders can also gain access to this maneuver baseline in order to conduct more advanced cyber defense-like actions. But we don't want to go in with that assumption. As of right now, we understand that the 255 Sierra and 25 Deltas at that level, if they ever get fully manned at the BCTs and divisions and corps, are going to be very overwhelmed on making sure that the standard baseline defensive cybersecurity measures are in place. So again, this is all about making sure that when the doo-doo hits the fan, we've got something where those local cyber defenders can go through the right process that ultimately is going to result in a DST or CPT coming down to support. Anything else? Come on, couldn't have been that good. Yes?
Just curious, are our sister services using a similar IP architecture?
So, okay, the question was, are the other services using the architecture? So the capability that's very similar to what we're doing within the Air Force, and you realize the Air Force actually identified 6 of their systems as weapon systems. We haven't gone that far yet, but they have what's called the cyber hunter capability. And actually the Air Force has come to the Army and looked at this and said, hey, we want to actually transition this in place of what they're doing right now for the CBA Hunter. Anything else? Got 5 minutes. The good-looking gentleman in the back. Yeah.
The other Harley rider.
Yeah.
Hey, who's providing the threat for the comprehensive assessment? How do you assess the goodness of the material solutions being delivered in terms of the ability to score competency score?
Right. So during the assessments right now, didn't I see Major Faber out there?
Yes, but you went back.
Oh, he probably said this is totally wrong, and I'm getting out of here. So right now for 17, they've got like 10 can scenarios that we can implant indicators of compromise on the network to make sure that we get this right as can be before we say, hey, we want to go up against the red team. So that will come down the line. I think as it goes through things like ATEC and other organizations, they're going to bring in red teaming against that as well. And there's some things that we have to look at. I mean, a lot of people ask, well, why is this separate hardware? Why can't you use the tactical server infrastructure that's already there? And our argument is that you don't want to fight on the terrain that's already compromised. So you want a pristine environment, again, where I can bring up something, even if it gets compromised, I tear it back down and bring it up, and it should be cleared. You're not going to get that in the TSI, especially running the NetOps capability. Even though it's virtualized, it's not very dynamic. It's static once it's up. So, but it doesn't mean that we're not going to challenge that. And so a lot of that assessment to see if some places that's viable will be to actually conduct some red teaming against both of those capabilities.
No guys that would do that?
Yes. Okay, going once, going twice.